Hello and welcome to The Square. Tonight is a very timely discussion. We're going to focus on the Rwanda Social Security Board's investments. We're going to look at profitability, performance, autonomy, long-term strategies behind our biggest investment fund, arguably so in Rwanda, Rssb, as well as other issues that will be raised during the show by our social media viewers. Thank you very much for tuning in. And I'd like to welcome our guest who's here. We have with us the Director General of Rssb, Mr. Régis Rudiamanshuro. Régis, great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Great to have you. I'm looking forward to a lot of our discussions tonight. Also joining us, resident panelist of the show. We missed her last week and she's here with us, Berna Namata. Berna, great to have you on the show. Great. Also, resident panelist who's usually on The Square is Charles Haba, but he's not here with us, although I'm sure he'll be following from wherever he is. My name is Dana MPC, host of The Square, and I'm happy to be here with all of you tonight. Like we always do, resident panelists of The Square share a few midweek highlights that have caught their attention. Berna, are there any midweek highlights you'd like to share with us tonight?
Yes, so I came across this week I came across a show that was discussing the concept of extended mind. And some scientists are in the labs researching the capacity of the human mind. And this is because at the moment, some scientists think that the human brain is reaching its optimum capacity.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and so we will need things outside the brain to maintain our lives.
Interesting.
Yes, and it's interesting the things that they are suggesting. For instance, photographs at work.
Yeah.
You see, some people already have pictures of their families on in workstations, and so these scientists are saying that will be very important because it helps with the memories, and also keeping you focused. And, yeah, so
does it require implanting various things?
No.
In the mind, chips and that sort of thing?
No, not really.
It's enhancing humans?
No, it's a combination of what technology is doing right now. For instance, the more you keep digital footprints of whatever is happening in your life, so at some point that may be useful when your brain can't remember.
Interesting.
Yes, and then the physical aspect of your work environment. If you have a portrait, for instance, of your family, that may remind you of your values and what you have to do. Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
It's a book, so
okay.
Anybody interested, Extended Mind. I think
Extended Mind.
Yeah.
All right. I'll follow up on that. My midweek highlight, obviously, I think, like for many, is the cabinet meetings happening today and the outcomes of that, reviewing the 15-day cabinet directives on COVID-19 restrictions. Do you think we'll have a curfew lifted, or do you think it will still be 6 p.m.?
I don't think so, though my hope would be that Rwanda has to bite the bullet at this point and just try and ease as much as they can.
Like you said last time on the show, there's a way we need to really learn how to live with this pandemic, one way or another.
There's no end in sight for the pandemic,
Absolutely.
Tyrants and So it's that point in time when someone has to bite the bullet.
I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, Régis, Mr. Rudiamanshuro, thank you so much for joining us on behalf of Rssb. I want us to start with a couple of tweets because our viewers have been anticipating this show, and we had quite a couple of tweets coming in, before we kick off. I'd like us to read them. So the first tweet is from Fred Kagame, who says, the major issue with Rssb investment, it's long-term development oriented instead of investing in high, quick return-oriented projects. This incapacitates Rwanda Social Security Board with liquid cash to cater for pensioners and fear accommodating new members by delaying retirement age. That's one tweet from Fred. We have another tweet that's coming in from Peace. And Peace says, on the contrary, Rssb liabilities are long-term in nature. Therefore, their investment should also be long-term, earn good returns in order to ensure the fund's ability to meet the obligations as they might materialize. We also have another tweet coming in from Peace, and she says that Rwanda's population is over 60 years of age. It is only about 5%. The majority of our population is youth, so RSSB ought to invest with a longer-term view to guarantee pension payments in 30 or 40 years to come. So these are two opposing views, so to speak, on the show, and I think we will have clarity on this. We have another tweet from Nick Bertrand, who says that to add the macro... We're happy to have you, Regis, to clarify on these issues. But the first issue I want to talk about is to do with strategic and profitable investments of RSSB. So, like I said earlier, RSSB manages arguably the largest investment fund in the country. Official figures state that the investment revenues for the fiscal year ending June 2021 amounted to 66.4 Rwandan francs billion. The fiscal year 2019 to 20 investment revenues were 59 billion, and in the year before 2018-29 they amounted to 49.3 billion Rwandan francs. So based on this upward trajectory, obviously in the last 3 years there's been a high trend towards investment returns. If you could just share with us, just to kick off the conversation, what are key areas, what are key sectors that RSSB invests in, and what's the strategy whenever you go into these sectors of investment?
No, thank you. It's a great question. The fund of RSSB today is about $1.5 billion, or $1.5 trillion. Asset under management is roughly around $1.3 billion, with 90% of that invested locally and 10% abroad. Mm-hmm. The profitability of the fund is not just as of the past 3 years. RSSB has been profitable for at least the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to key sectors that we have invested in, it's always about financial returns, but a different time on the journey of the country or the national agenda for development, it's been different sectors depending on what drives the economy the most. So at some point you've seen a lot of investment in real estate, mm-hmm. Which probably will cover more.
Absolutely, we'll definitely touch on that later on in the show. Yes.
But mainly also in the financial sector. Mm-hmm. In fact, 36% of the portfolio is just in financial sector, and about an additional 22% in supporting government bonds and T-bills. You could actually even say that RSSB, meaning the members, support single-handedly 12% of the national bank's financial sector.
Okay, and that's good to know.
The largest government debt owner, about 20% of all the T-bond and T-bills and bonds raised by the government. So, and this is very important for the members to understand, because it's your money, right? It's your money at work. And when we talk about different national development agenda, whether it be new factories, whether it be new businesses, whether it be that new pharmacy opening in your neighborhood, with a loan from probably your favorite bank, you've played a role because part of your contribution. But the other part of our portfolio consists of about 18% in non-financial sector equity. These are the MTNs, Simerwa, Bralirwa, Inyanges, Sopirwa, and KTRN, and so on. Mm-hmm. And about 12% only actually consists of real estate. And
so only 12% of your investments are in real estate?
Yes. Okay. And the other 10%, as I mentioned earlier, is in foreign equities. These are stock we've acquired on secondary market in Nairobi, for instance, equity, KCB, but also in some pharmaceutical and technological companies we invested in abroad, mm-hmm. to hedge on the future, looking at the opportunity. Mm-hmm.
And if you could just share with us, what is the strategy? Because people would also like to understand, when you go into this investment, what are some key strategies, rationale in terms of, making sure there's due diligence done, to avoid sort of, investment losses and that sort of thing. What are some key strategies that RSSB focuses on when making these decisions?
Thank you. So we recently, as of last year, have a new 2020-2025 strategic plan. Yes. And the theme is member first, data-driven, high performance. And really that drives every decision we make across the institution. It has to be member first and foremost, meaning, is this investment going to benefit the members, right? And this is when you're looking at financial sector and the impact it has across the economy. Or you look at investing in real estate, different big, massive projects in terms of job creation, tax payment, but also in investments that help creating new businesses, making Rwanda self-reliant in itself. That's why you see us taking bigger risks, going areas where nobody else is going, playing the role of a key anchor investor.
What are some of these like anchor investment projects, for instance?
So, for instance,
big risk sort of anchor investments.
Like for instance, when we went to in cement, it's heavy capital requirement.
Yes.
And when we went in some of these financial institutions a long time ago, when we were investing, when the economy was still growing, and they needed a huge amount of capital, that was Rssb that went in first. That's why we are majority shareholder, and if not a significant shareholder in some of these investments. When it comes to research, pharmaceutical research, Merrimark, Leaf, Akagera Medicine, these are top-notch research companies that, high risk, high rewards, but with huge impact, not just for Rwandans, but also for the global population. If you manage to cure cancer or tuberculosis, and these are things that, not only align with the vision of the country, 2050, but high risk as well, that it's not everyone that can afford to do that. So the members, through Rssb, are able to invest in that. So it has to be member first, that's what I was referring to. It has to be data-driven, and really trying to make sure we understand what we want to do. Through the ongoing transformation, with the recent autonomy, Rssb now has the easiness or the power to partner faster with experts of industries and different sectors that we need to develop these new opportunities. Where we don't have enough knowledge, we partner with someone who has the power and the capacity to do so. So data-driven, and then high performance in the sense that members expect that, and these are hard-earned money that the members trust the institution with. So we want to make sure that in comparison with different opportunities available, and everything, all the other factors align, good for the member, data-driven, is this going to give us potentially the highest returns? And just like any investment, there are always risks that, the role of an investor is to make sure that how do I optimize the opportunity, but also minimize the risk and manage them in a way that's possible. You do well on some, you lose some money on some, but the goal is to make sure your portfolio is hopefully beating the market, and that's why we are trying to do as an institution.
Thank you. We'll definitely come back to the issue on, you said your strategic plan is a focus on members, member-driven, members first, but also to do with performance. And I will come back to that when it comes to this issue of autonomy that was granted to your institution, I think, starting last year, end of last year, 2020, December. Berna, I know you have a lot to say on this topic. Yes, please, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say based on what Regis has shared with us.
Okay. I would like to thank him again for coming on the show. And the reason I'm saying it again is because from experience, most of the time when we try to invite public officials to come here and explain or be accountable because, something is of interest, public interest, most of them shy away. So thank you for coming and willing to, to explain and give more clarity on what Rssb is doing. Now, I wanted to go back to the mandate of the fund, which is, as I understand it, you're the expert, as I understand it, social security. Now, beyond looking at what Rssb is doing, beyond providing pension, the other aspects of social security. And by this, I'm talking about taking care of people with disability, occupational hazards. Right now, we are in an environment where there's a drastic kind of trend in terms of reduction of employment opportunities. And I feel that also adds weight on Rssb, on the mandate of Rssb, because over the last 1 year, for instance, more people have become unemployed. Now, so on the broader, looking at the broader mandate of the Social Security Fund, to what extent would you say you are making progress towards providing social security, not just around pension or health insurance, which you do quite well, but the other aspects? And again, because, for instance, on shelter, social security around shelter, when we look at the investments you have made over the last couple of years, we see that there's concentration on high end and not necessarily low end. And now one could argue that affordable housing or low end housing is not profitable. So as an investment fund, of course, it's pension money. You want the highest return on investment. So probably that's why you would go for high end investments in real estate. But how about the other side of social protection, you know, where the Rssb, for instance, would say we will partner with banks and get into low-cost housing and have, you know, several, because at the moment, and you can clarify this, I feel that, for instance, the issue of affordable housing remains, we have a huge gap. We still have so many Rwandans that cannot afford a home, you know. So if you could give more clarity around beyond pension and beyond health insurance, what the fund is doing to provide for Rwandans or give confidence into a future that is, you know, more secure. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a very important fact of who we are as an institution. And it goes directly with the member first part of it, fulfilling our social security mandate, right? Ensuring that the social welfare of our members is covered, but also this falls and aligns directly with the vision of our government, which is pro-citizen. So ensuring that from a social welfare perspective, we fulfill our fund is something high on top of our mandate. In fact, the first mandate, making sure that from members are getting what the fund owes them. And meaning, if you spend all these years working, when you get time to retirement, you get what's rightfully due for you, and to make sure that if you get sick, the fund is there to cover the medical bills and everything you need. Currently, Rssb manages 6 schemes: pension, occupational hazard, maternity leave, medical, mutuelle de santé or CBHI, and the recent one, Ejo Heza. Each one have different structures and different purposes. The pension from a long-term retirement perspective, same for Ejo Heza, which is a very brilliant scheme, by the way, and we're investing a lot in mobilizing people to understand it better, because it complements some of the things the pension doesn't do. And then the medical as well. The good news is that, you know, to be able to, in the current strategic plan, part of it is to review and improve what the scheme provides from a benefit perspective, whether it be pension, medical, mutuelle de santé, all of them. And these are scientific methodologies that have to be applied to be able to make any change, because you have to be able to carefully understand long-term impact of a single small change you might make, whether it be change in retirement age or increase in benefit or added benefit on the medical or covering, you know, a new list of diseases on the mutuelle de santé. That's why data-driven is very important in the strategy that I've set, because the wrong parameter can just, you know, shorten the life of the fund very fast. So we are, as part of what's going on with the restructuring, IT modernization, you know, with the recent autonomy, all that is to help us not only access the talent with the skills to do the work, but also the tools in terms of technology and data mining and analytics and actuarials. And these are skills with the current structure we couldn't afford, that now we'll be able to afford. And that's what the fund is there for. So the investment part comes as a mean to sustain and allow us to do those responsibility at the long term as much as possible. But the most important is fulfilling the needs of the members as the law allows them to provide for.
You know, when you talk about the autonomy that you have now, and also the figures that Diana just read out in terms of profitability, and we are saying profitable over the last decade. When you carefully look at over the last decade, most of the profitability, and you can clarify this, it appears that profitability is really linked to legislation. Yeah, meaning that, for instance, the most recent one was around the private sector being, the law came out and the private sector had to make a contribution to mutual and maternity, the private sector, to top up on what you have. And there's been a lot. That's the kind of legislation I'm saying that contributes to your profitability. Now, would you agree that there's a gap there in terms of return on investment on your side, that you cannot, perhaps you still have challenges in terms of profitability to be able to innovate and roll out new products without really legislation that makes it mandatory, for instance, adding pressure on the private sector to contribute? To contribute.
Thank you. Actually, this is a very good opportunity to clarify. So when we say last year we made a return on investment of 66.4 billion, this is actually purely returns from investment activities, which is different from the net income, for instance, where you count contributions. If you were to count contributions, the net of last year is over 260 billion. And this is where the net between what we receive as contribution minus what we pay out as invoices for medical, pension payments, mutuelle de santé invoices. And on top of that's just the income, what's remaining. But when we report the 64 billion or the close to 55 last year, this is purely just return on investment. This is dividends. This is interest from bonds and bills. That's why the highest, most performing sector is financial sector. And if you are, you supply 12% of the liquidity of the financial sector and you own over 20% of the government debt locally, those T-bills and bonds and those term deposits and current accounts, they have, it's quick cash remuneration. But just to clarify that, the legislation, while it's good, it has its own value. For instance, for mutuelle de santé, we're very grateful for the government initiative to pass that order where Arura has to pay for, on behalf of the telecom companies, fuel, the police, other different sectors. And same for maternity, where we all have to contribute 0.6% and 0.5% of our salary to mutuelle de santé. That has its role in growing the range of benefits different schemes can cover. So for instance, for mutuelle de santé, just in the past 2 years, we've managed to collect 10 plus 19 billion, 29 billion. That's a huge input just to mutuelle de santé, which is it's a fund that has a deficit. So in its creativity, the government looking out, how do we continuously make sure the members can get more for the money? And all this is without increasing the contribution of the member. So we have to give credit also to the government for really reaching far and beyond on behalf of the member. But just to clarify that point, the return on investment we're discussing here is purely return from the investment activities.
Okay. And is there, is there a plan to change that? Because government cannot remain in the business of facilitating you. I would be interested in knowing more innovation around income. Yes, we have return on investment, but also income. What kind of innovation is happening around?
Can we talk about that when we get to the last part of the conversation, to do with autonomy?
Sure.
I think we can combine innovative ways of income with the newfound autonomy that allows you to actually follow up on these innovative avenues of looking for income on these investments. The next part of the conversation, I think it's, I don't know if I can call it the elephant in the room, but a lot of our tweets have been on that, and it's to do with transparency and accountability. So Rssb, has been critiqued for not being as transparent or accountable with information based on its investment portfolio to its members. And by this I'm referring to, the public backlash a few years ago to do with the New Vision real estate investment. And then more recently, I think in some media reports last week was the newly constructed 18-hole Kigali golf course. So I just want to pick up these two. I'm sure there are others, but I think these are the two in terms of public backlash, asking RSSB, we need more answers, where's our money going? The reports that it's being mismanaged, the reports that it doesn't correlate with Rwandan, actualities on the ground. Vision City, estates is not relevant at this point. Why can't you invest more in low to middle income housing, that sort of thing? So my question to you, Regis, how can RSSB, against this backdrop, how can it be more transparent and accountable in the work that it does to its members, to the public?
I think that's again, you refer to it as the elephant.
The elephant's in the room.
It's a very good point, and I also appreciate the opportunity to being here and discussing that point. It's a fair criticism for us, and a point that we know we have to improve on. In fact, when you read the strategic plan that we have today, in big, bold words and letters, you will see that working hard to regain the trust from members, and that includes a lot of communication. We had started doing that about a year ago. Unfortunately, with COVID, we couldn't have, but we had already done a few press conferences. It is very important that the members understand what the fund is doing. As I mentioned a few days ago to one of the other media houses, there should be no secret to what we're doing and what we're up to. It's your money. You need to know how it's working, what it's doing, the impact it's making. And yes, we need to do more. There's no arguing about that. And we have some very good plan to do that, despite the challenges with COVID, but we'll figure out a way. Part of the restructuring we're doing is also to enable us to do that, bringing experts to do that, leveraging media, acting like we live in the 21st century, pretty much. So communication is going to be improved. But if you allow maybe just to elaborate a bit, it's important that members understand how much and how hard their money is at work. When we talk about, the investment in different sectors, with a portfolio of over 36 equity companies locally, and with if you include the direct supply chain, we were counting earlier with the team, it goes over 70,000 jobs just from direct equities to the direct supply chain. And just to tell you, actually, we thought this was a conservative numbers because if you take a company like MTN, where we own 6%, and they have about over 45,000 agents, just part of the supply chain. And just to tell you, if you include different banks and their agent networks, and you take companies like Inyanje with the different farmers they work with, or Sopirwa with the supply chain they have, or Brailwa with the farmers who supply, and it's important the members understand, this is your money and it's working very hard for you. And when we talk about national development, GDP growth, and the role that construction for the past years pre-COVID has played in developing the country,
it's been pretty high.
It's a lot, and this is your money. Yes, there are some projects that didn't go well, and I'll address that. But it's important that members understand this is, that when your favorite bank reports, amazing return, this is part of your money. You played a key role with all the project and funding they've done, and we need to do more communication about it, so that not only we take pride as Rwandans that actually if you're part of your fund is funding 20% of the government local debt, we should take pride in that. That it's part of my money that it is helping Rwanda not have to borrow abroad. So on some projects that don't go well, it is true there's some mistakes that have happened in the past, but not to say that no one is perfect. There's always room for improvement, and the important thing is while your portfolio manages to be profitable across the board, but you have some bad projects, how fast you learn from the mistake you made to make sure you don't repeat them, and make sure the next project is better and more profitable. And one thing we don't say enough is that actually, Vision City project was actually phase 1. It's not done yet. There's phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4.
Is it? What will phase 2, 3, and 4 consist of?
So it's pretty much almost the same type of structure.
Will it be more affordable?
It will be a mix of affordable, mid-high-end income. That market is there. Some of the things we do better is historically we've owned the cost of of the cost and the risk of construction and the market risk. Now we've changed the model to what they call design, build, and finance. The construction risk is offloaded to the contractor, and you guarantee 100% market offtake, which is a good deal for any contractor who knows what they're doing, right? But also what we're doing better on our side, instead of building 500 units at a go and waiting for the market to come, number one, you've already killed the supply. You know, supply is higher than demand. The price, you know, the economics of demand and supply. But going forward will be not only offloading the risk of construction to the contractor, but also now on the market risk, we're only building on demand. We know the type of housing that have worked. We have a waiting list of people who signed off, say, if you,
so
next time...
there's better communication and engagement with the market.
Yes, we can do better.
Compared to, for instance, the past, you know?
I would say so. It hasn't been easy.
And
with
I'm
COVID.
talking about Vision City.
Yes, it hasn't been easy given the COVID, but also the fact that we are refining the plans, right? We make sure that, number one, we build the houses, the designs, and the final house is affordable, meaning affordable to different segments, but nevertheless affordable. Someone can buy it. We'll build in segments, 10 houses at a go, so that we know what we're building. In any other market, actually, I've rarely seen it where you build a house without having a buyer. You usually, you know, you put a deposit, we show you the models, you like it, and by the time we start construction, you're already paying your mortgage, so that we are building on demand.
So in the past, this was not really done.
It wasn't considered.
It wasn't really considered. Yeah, that makes sense. And right now, if you could just quickly go to what's the occupancy rate of Vision City? Because I know when this was happening, Rssb kept on cutting down the prices. The public kept on saying, but you guys, how could you do this without really, you know, factoring, you know, the market, on the realities on the ground? What's the occupancy rate right now, if you can share that with us?
So I'm happy to say that.
I hear it's over 90%, but I'll let you, 96,
yeah, 96,
but I'll let you.
96 with a waiting list of, so we had about close to 24 bedroom apartments left. We have a wait list of 40 people, and then with a wait list is always, you know, you apply, sometimes you go to your bank to ask for mortgage. Not everybody gets it. So we believe within the next 3 months the project will be sold out. And for phase 2, we've actually already the cleanup of the plot is almost done. It will be 3 times the size of phase 1.
When is it expected to kick off? For some of us latecomers like Brenna and I, we might be part of phase 2, you know, who knows?
We are hoping by Q1 next year that we can break
that's
ground.
fast.
Yes, the clearing is ongoing, almost done. And we are hoping, of course, very important is the costing model, and assuring that actually, you know, the final prices, you know, it's something that the market is
reflective
really
of the market.
But on top of that, I can't forget that we're also launching affordable home project, Rusororo and Wamagana.
Yes.
And this is something we do very well. And you mentioned it earlier. It's something dear to us, and unfortunately, and it's not just Rssb. It's a format that has been hard to crack, just because the limitation of what an affordable home is, and to be able to benefit from the subsidy of the government. You know, you can go above 35 million, and historically we've actually tried as an institution, but given, again, because we always own the risk of construction and the risk of the market, we always.
Which is not something you're working
now,
making sure.
Definitely. You know, now, for instance, the tender that you will see is. Again, design, build, and finance, and of course with a supervision company. You build, let's say we're starting with 3,000 homes. You propose designs, you're able to ensure capacity, you're able to build it. You can partner, do joint ventures with other partners, and you show capacity to fund it. And our guarantee is that we do 100% offtake of your project. I mean, it's a great deal if, again, you know what you're doing. Because if you know, your logistics is slow and the quality is not right, and the supervisor has to make you break one wall and repeat it, that's your cost, right? However, if you're done 100% and it matches exactly the needs we want, we buy 100% of the houses you completed. And this can be done in different phases depending on what different contractors can afford. What we want is quality house, affordable. We don't want to compromise on the quality, the final touch and feel of the product just because it's affordable. And there's huge demand. That's no doubt about it. If anything, the market for affordable homes is there. It's been hard cracking it, and we are hopeful that with ongoing studies that we are doing, we have some very interesting proposals. Towards the end of this year, we'll have a final communication to say, so that when we start actually selling the models, you know, to different segment, teachers, doctors, nurses, you know, staff of different institutions. So it's very important. We want to get it right, and we hope by now offloading that risk the person who comes in will definitely be sure of what they have to do.
That sounds really good. And of course, the other issue I want to touch on,
Can I respond to?
Just very quickly, I also want to touch on 2 issues. I wanted to touch on real estate, and then also investments made in terms of MICE. And here I'm talking about meetings, incentives, conferences, and events. And this is the 18-hole, world-class, international standards golf course that we built. If you can touch on some of the critiques that were made in terms of, is this really relevant? Was it well invested in, well managed? I know it was there was an event on Sunday to kind of open it to the public. It's good to go. So what do you have to say to some of those reports?
Yes.
Or some of those public opinions on the matter?
No, thank you. Number one, I think it's good that people actually ask questions. It would be the worst if they were indifferent, right? Actually, people critique and ask questions because they care.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a good starting point, right? And we're happy.
Have an option.
It's starting point. I mean, if they were indifferent, it would be worse. Because
they can't afford to be indifferent.
Which is true. That's why for us, we're in a position where we say it's good that people actually appreciate, and we stand from a position where we could have done better from a communication perspective. So there's a gap, a vacuum of information on our behalf. So people ask questions, which is it's like a wake-up call. Say, look, we need to do more and better in terms of communication. But about the project itself, this is a great project. Again, when you look at the numbers, again, repeating data-driven, but the numbers tell the story. And 44 billion global market estimated this year.
These are projections.
No, this is a real number. This is
elsewhere.
No, globally. I mean, globally, the golf market is 44 billion, and let's look on our continent, right? About 2% of the total number of golf courses, 52% in South Africa, and even majority of all the courses not at the high standard as we have. I mean, look at the opportunity that is possible for a country to have good golf course with a proper business, with a strategy like Visit Rwanda behind it to support it. We can sit at that table. There's some countries splitting that 44 billion and we're not on that table. Now, if we do all the right things, we can get a good piece of it, and we have actually better option because we have safaris, gorillas, mice. We have actually more to offer in combination of the golf that if we do all the right things, we can actually make it a profitable investment. And there's something that, it's a saying, but I'll share it so that maybe put things in perspective. In business and in sports, there are 3 types of people. There are those who make it happen, those who watch it happen, and those who wonder what just happened. And Rwanda, for the past 27 years, we've been the country that make it happen, right? And not because we're perfect, we don't make mistakes. We do, but we bounce faster. We learn and we act better forward, right? The second category of people is those who watch it happen, and usually they will critique if they don't seek understanding first. It can be negative, and the worst kind is those who just wonder what just happened. And I can bet you, how many just wonder what happened with Messi wearing a Visit Rwanda shirt.
Visit Rwanda. I know a lot of people wondering how did this happen, when did this happen?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we need to look at a bigger picture, and we can't afford, as a country, knowing our history, to miss that point. That we get lost in the small parts, that we lose the big picture. That actually someone is splitting this money, and it's not just about tourism and golf. I mean. Another day I was having an interesting conversation about video games industry. This is so big industry, growing at such a pace that who's tapping that? Some people are splitting this revenue, and we're not part of it. So for the golf course itself, I really appreciate actually that we got an opportunity to share the story. And of course we are accountable to make it work, right? This is your money. And while we are ambitious and want to be part of, continue to make it happen, we need to make sure it works. And that's why we've hired a partner with the experts, YouGolf, Gregory International, and Visit Rwanda as a whole, right? And the MICE, what Rwanda has done. This is really just a complementary piece to everything good that has been happening. And I pray that, as especially the young generation, we don't lose sight to that mentality of making it happen. And not saying that, why would we, as I've seen some comments, somewhat disappointing, that some people think it's not for us. Why are we investing in golf? This is too big.
It kind of reminds me of that story. I remember when Intercontinental was being built in Rwanda, and a lot of people were telling our head of state, this was 90s, why are you investing in a 5-star hotel? Rwanda is just, coming through a genocide, focus on other priorities. And, if you don't have the same long-term vision, sometimes people can stop you from really going big. And I feel like this golf course is probably one of those.
Yes. And while that's the truth,
yes.
and while that's the truth, we're
I know
still
Brenna,
accountable.
she's a bit biased when it comes to golf. We've talked about it on the show before. I think it's a very high-end, non-relevant.
No,
Okay.
not really. I mean, I think it fits very well into what Rwanda is trying to achieve, marketing Rwanda as a high-end tourist destination. So you cannot have one and only, you cannot have Akagera, you cannot have gorillas in isolation. Yeah, so you need a full package. That is very clear. But I hope you understand where the pessimism is coming from, because one, I think it's true that at the moment, if you look at the global outlook, the forecasts, for instance, around tourism, they are quite dim. If you look at the local package, the packaging of high end, we still have issues there. So the pessimism somewhere is coming from people saying, okay, do we already have, for instance, a local established golf culture? I don't think so. You can say we are targeting people to fly in and play golf. That's fine. But do you have the other facilities that actually make, for instance, Rwanda a better destination and not Nairobi, which may have a better, golfing culture and, or Dubai. So
it's definitely worth thinking about.
Yeah,
it has to be a holistic and conducive
yes, we can be optimistic,
environment.
I think, but we have to be consciously optimistic.
Absolutely, yeah.
And more so because, again, when most of your members are struggling with accommodation, then of course some of them you can understand why they are pessimistic. Yeah, and I like that you mentioned the issue of communication. I would be more concerned about accountability. Before someone paints a bad picture of this project, imagine if there was already an understanding of what is actually happening. Because there was a soft launch, I think, just before the pandemic, and the project started working, and then suddenly we had issues, and then we had a soft launch again. I think what we had recently was kind of a soft launch to allay fears that, the project
so Brenna,
is actually there.
in the interest of time, what exactly is your point or question?
Yeah, so my point is,
Regis,
we can't just dismiss the pessimism around
Absolutely
the project.
not. Absolutely not.
We have to be consciously optimistic, especially at this point in time, because of, the pandemic has changed things. And perhaps we should be rethinking some of the strategies before the pandemic. That's my point.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. It's a very good perspective and actually somehow answers to why the need of such projects that allows us to bring in the country forex, foreign exchange, like dollars and euros. Because indeed, if you look at the impact of COVID and on what we're able to export and impact on our currency itself, it's big. And projects like that is what can complement the package that invite people to come and spend in our country. The research shows that Germans can actually spend about 950, one of the highest spenders when it comes to golf. But while I understand, again, not making excuses on why we didn't communicate, we should communicate to all the members that
and I think communicate with assurance as well.
Yes.
There's communicating just sort of reactive and passive, but I think it's also important to communicate proactively. You're investing in this in the event that this is misunderstood by the public. Let's get ahead of the communication and, compared to what was released by your institution on these reports. But I want us to go just quickly to the last point, and thank you for all the clarification, Regis. To do with autonomy. I want us to be brief on it because I really want to engage with the public as much as possible on some of the tweets that are coming in. Is Rssb autonomous, and what does this mean for improved operations, restructuring, autonomy to be quick with investments? In government, the public procurement, it's a bit of a headache, and it can stall a couple of projects. So what does this, are you fully autonomous and from the state, and what does this autonomy mean for the institution and its investments?
Thank you. Yes, we are fully autonomous as of February this year.
This year, yes.
This year.
Yes.
This is a radical change in what Rssb can achieve and how fast it can move. Mainly from, I think what we gain most is value for time, which is an element that often we don't discuss, but value for time is key from an investment perspective. Because, in a couple of weeks, you can lose a big partner. Just because your process, or your tendering process, your recruitment, your governance is just slow. So this is big for us. We're able to do a restructuring, which will allow us to, it's a big fund, a sensitive mandate. Our mistakes are very expensive in the sense that it's human lives, it's your money for your retirement. So we ought to have the best people doing the work for you to make the most of your money. So autonomy will allow us to review the salary scale of our employees, the structure of institution fit for the mandate. And again, if you look at how the company came to be, Rssb, a merger of different, from Kesosia to Rama, then Mutuelle de Santé was added to it, then maternity leave came, and then Ejoheza came from Inecofin was added. So it was about time that actually we put a structure that is fit for the institution. So
I think you were dealing with a sort of archaic infrastructure that was not corresponding to the new developments of institutions.
Yes, and the culture of the team itself, it's just to build a new culture around a new strategy, around a new structure, and to make sure that also, IT modernization of the institution. And one thing we're keen to improve is the time it takes to provide service, to pay hospitals, to respond to new queries. And technology is good at empowering and allowing those things to happen. So what members can expect from our autonomy is faster and better services, better investment returns in the sense that we can afford the experts to work with us. In fact, we are working on boarding an investment advisor.
That was going to be my next question. In terms of accountability, who's going to check you?
So we have Ecofin as the line ministry. We have our board.
Yes, we have a board.
Grateful for government as well for giving us a new board. Previously, historically, board members of Rssb were government employees from different institutions. Now it's experts of their own in different industries. And so we have
your board chair has an impressive background.
Everyone on the board.
Everyone on the board.
If you look at, sometimes you look and you're just grateful, and now you make it count. Because with people like that, with the resources they bring on board, you as management, you have to make it count. Get the most you can from them.
Okay. So. Yeah, thank you very much. I know Brenna wants to comment because I really want to also go back to the tweets. I know Brenna wants to comment on the autonomy part, but I think Regis explained it. So there's a board. These are the expectations of autonomy, and this is what members expect.
The board has always been there. The board has always been there, and I just wish Charlie was here to talk about the story of boards in Rwanda and how efficient they are and how they work.
I think we've explained this with the Auditor General several times.
If you could speak more about corporate governance in this whole institutional reform, and the reason I'm saying this is because, again, we've had boards. We still have a boards problem in this country, that you have boards that are not effective because they're, people like you decide who comes to the board, and yet you're supposed to report to the board. We still have that issue. So if you could tell us your board structure, how independent it is, and going forward in terms of corporate governance, what are the systems that you're putting in place? Thirdly, in terms of accountability, the very last one,
but
accountability for your members, beyond press statements, beyond explaining like this. For instance, monthly, quarterly statements. I know you can log in on your website, but I don't want to come to your website as a member. Why can't I get a monthly update in my inbox about what's happening, for instance? Beyond contributions, but saying this is what we are doing. Is that possible?
Can you just please allow him to answer?
Yes,
and if you can answer Brenna's questions as also briefly as possible.
Yes. So from board perspective, we don't have a board issue, at least at Rssb. And
you didn't say that.
No, I would actually if this is the opportunity to raise a matter, and I can guarantee you, we don't have a board problem. In fact, the board we have has solved a lot of issues. From a corporate perspective, from a governance perspective, and also from a strategic oversight perspective. So we are grateful, and I report to them as a senior management, and I don't think it's just us. I mean, if you look at the different recent appointments, you could tell the caliber of those boards you don't select. I mean, my network is not that rich to be able to appoint.
That's good to know. That's reassuring.
On the accountability, yes, it's your money, by the way. These are good questions, and those are the things we want to do for you. That's why we're automating. That's why we want to do more press conferences. That's why we're bringing experts who help us do better communication proactively, as Diana mentioned. So just bear with us, and we're not perfect, but I guarantee you, come for a field trip. Yes, come for a field trip, see the amount of work that is happening in Rssb, and the amount of the deadlines we're working against. So, we're still here. I'm happy to come back and hold me accountable.
Absolutely, I think you should. I think you should be here.
Publicize the strategy so that members.
It's available on our website.
The website is the wrong place.
So how do you want it?
As a journalist, yes, I would go to a website. But imagine somebody with a lot of work. They wouldn't go to the website.
So you want like a sort of newsletter that goes into people's inboxes?
It can be a newsletter. It can be mass campaigns around this is our strategy, what do you think? Have, discussions, people actually give feedback on the strategy, consultation.
I think this is something you should factor in, what Berna is saying.
Because, and the reason I'm saying this is because most of the time, institutions like yours can hire the best of experts to sit somewhere in Washington and write a good strategy, which has no sense of, the local context.
Oh my goodness. That's actually, it's
I'm not saying that's what you did, but I'm just saying it would be good to have, a more consultative process. So that when you come here and are discussing the strategy, it doesn't appear like it's just coming from your boardroom.
Berna, please. I think
one comment.
No, Berna has hijacked this conversation. It's very unfair to viewers also who need their tweets being read. But can you, because we have less than 5 minutes left, if you can answer what she's saying briefly, Regis.
I think so. I
know she's very passionate about this topic.
When it comes to developing a strategy, that strategy is purely made in Rwanda. That's why member first.
That's
right?
good to know.
In the sense that every Rwandan is a member of Rssb one way or another. And the efforts during Rssb in end of Feb 2020, and the amount of work spent just going across the country through mobilization and through our local field agents just to gather the thoughts and understanding what the members have been looking for so many years. So it's a made in Rwanda strategy. I want to confirm that. And number two, what you suggest about a recurring journal, actually, it's part of one of the strategies to bring trust to the members, and that's something we consider, and see if we can send out a newsletter to our members on a monthly basis. So hold me onto that.
Berna, thank you. Berna, you've been ungovernable today, but I think your questions really prodded Regis. I hope he's answered most of your questions.
Yes, he is.
Unfortunately, we don't have
good, actually.
Yeah, he's really good. I know what he's doing. We don't have time to read all the tweets, unfortunately, but I'll try and read as many as possible. The first tweet, if you could have that one on our screens, is from Mathieu, who says RSSB has been innovating in changing the strategic investment narrative. We can happily anticipate positive returns. Recommendations: RSSB should explore avenues allowing banking of all pension savings to a certain extent as collateral. This is to boost further our economy.
Interesting.
That's the first tweet. And then we have a tweet from Alice, who says that here is a question. Beneficiaries allowed to make early withdrawals to help them deal with COVID hardship? Very relevant question. We have another tweet coming in just after Alice, and this tweet, sorry, I think we're having an issue with our screens, but let's just focus on those two questions.
Thank you. So, if I...
and one last one, if we can have it on our screens, they would like RSSB to shed light on why the premiums paid by parents cannot be reimbursed to children once the parents die. Imagine the parents' premium paid for decades going vain just because they're no longer alive. So, if you could... Two questions, Regis, briefly, if you could answer as we close. Elise, who asked about the issue to do with access to funds due to the COVID hardships, and the second on premium parents and children. Maybe you can clarify on that person.
Yes. So the first question by Alice, yes. Unfortunately, it's not possible given that pension. It's possible on one scheme, but not on the other. Well, but also on the where it's possible, it's not in the immediate. Let me explain. On a pension, there's a science behind how a pension works. There's specific formulas that define how that is distributed and when you can touch it, because it's important. A small single parameter can change its long-term sustainability and impact all the other members. So on a pension fund, it's not possible. However, on Ejo Heza, which is a very exciting new scheme, voluntary scheme, I'm encouraging everyone to really join. When you reach a specific amount, I believe it's 4 million saving, you can actually use your contribution as collateral for mortgage for medical bills and for education of
This
yours.
is the Ejoheza scheme.
Ejoheza scheme.
Okay.
And it's voluntary. There's no limit, no minimum how much you can save and how often you can save. And on top of that, government actually top up on your contribution. So check out Ejoheza, look at the benefits. It can answer some of those needs. In regards to the pension, it's impossible. Though we are finalizing a actuarial study to see how much more we can do with it and any changes that might be done. At the moment, you cannot withdraw. The other question about using premium as
to children.
That's actually, yes, the question about premium, that's actually not true.
Yeah.
Members, if you pass away, your children, the survivors can receive a part of your contribution. So that we can clarify, and we'll look for your handle, and then
we'll get back to
and we'll get back to you. And the last one about using some of your pension as collateral. Actually, Ejoheza can do that. Again, it's very flexible. It's really a big complement to the pension. But something I want to share is that in the new affordable home scheme that we are building, beyond just putting the houses and minimize the risk of construction and managing the market risk, we've been thinking of how we can come up with a model of rent to own, where majority of the people who want to invest in these houses, sometimes banks, they don't have a bankable profile. And, regardless of saying the bank can lend at 11%, even that 11% you don't qualify because you don't have a historic of land. So what we're doing is allowing people, trying to come up with a scheme that allows you to, as you pay rent for over a certain year, we can keep the money for you, use that as your first deposit, and help you pretty much become bankable from mortgage perspective. We're still working on it. Okay. It's something that we think will be exciting, and hopefully members will like it as it addresses that problem.
Thank you very much, Regis. Ben, I hope you'll be brief, please,
I'll
in
be
the interest
brief.
of time.
No, it's just a request.
Yes,
it's just a request and an idea.
Yeah.
You've done very well with the maternity cover for the private sector. I like what is happening. Is it possible to subsidize and also consider for women in the informal sector? Because currently women in the formal sector can have 12 weeks, which is great. But how about this woman, a farmer? She also needs that same right. Is there a way you can think about, subsidizing that so that we also have women in the informal sector benefit? Again, going back to social security. Let's help the farmers. Let's help the women, women in the informal sector.
It's a very good idea. And if you allow, I'll sleep on that.
Yeah,
thank you.
We'll think about it. And again, member first, data-driven, high performance. So for the members and with the right information, we'll see what can happen.
Members first.
Thinking about. Thank you.
Members first, data-driven, and operational efficiency.
High performance.
High performance.
High performance.
Thank you very much, Regis. It's been a pleasure, very informative, and thank you for really being as open as possible, especially to the criticisms, the plans that you have in the future, the clarification. Much, much appreciated. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bernard, thank you very much. I know you're passionate about Rssb. Thank you so much for your insights and also your questions to our guests. I really loved that. To our viewers, thank you very much. There's so many tweets, and Regis, this shows you how people are really interested about, their money, where it's going. We'll keep the conversation going on all of social media platforms using #TheSquareRW. Thank you very much. Keep it going. I'd like to thank our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee. Thank you for supporting The Square. See you all again next week. Have a good night.